And if I'm really honest, I feel like a hypocrite making videos about how to be present with your kids. But because of making those videos, I am less present with my kids. My burnout radar is fried. I am either fine, or I'm dying, everything is falling apart, there's no hope. Hospitalization of your kid is hard enough already, not to mention doing it in another country. I have been putting this video off for a long time. This isn't like most of the videos I make. There's not really a point 1, 2, 3 or a takeaway, but it's more a heart to heart where I share with you honestly what had been going on in my life. Burnout is not easy to talk about, but I think as a content creator and especially as a mom, I never want to put out this image that I have it all figured out and I have it all together. The reality is I don't. In case this is your first time, hi, my name is Tian. I'm your mom friend of two littles who's trying to bring intentionality into motherhood and family life. If that sounds like something you care about, please subscribe. So my kids just went down for a nap. I'm about to do a quick pickup. I'll make a cup of coffee and we'll catch up. Let's get to it. So 2025 had been extremely difficult so far. A lot has happened in just this past 6 months. Did I just say 6? It's August. I'm sorry. It's not just my burnout radar being fried, my sense of time is fried too. In January, we got into a car accident. It was not at all our fault. We weren't even in the actual collision. It was 2 other cars colliding. The one that got hit spun on ice and turned around and hit us while we were just doing our business in our lane. And it ended up being a 4-car collision. It was very complicated. It involved 3 minors, 2 of which were our kids in the car. Sometimes just the thought of what could have been is already traumatizing enough. Were we at the intersection a few seconds earlier? I just don't even want to think about what could have been. So I'm still working through some of the driving anxieties and intrusive thoughts. Also, the logistics of navigating a 4-car collision is just so much. Thankfully, no one was hurt except my whiplash. I had some whiplash on my neck and shoulder, for which I went to physical therapy for a couple months, and I'm still having ongoing OMT treatment because sometimes it will just suddenly tense up, or if I lift something funny, it will act up a little bit. And I learned from my doctor that shoulder injury just takes forever to heal. It's one of those joints that tend to hold on to injury for a lot longer than others. So that was January. And then in May, we were going to go on a family trip to Japan. It's our first family trip. Chris and I were so excited about it. I had been to Japan before by myself when I haven't even met Chris yet, I think. I guess it's a similar kind of excitement as parents who do sports and finally their kids are old enough to play with them and they're like, yes, let me show you everything I know about this thing that I'm crazy about. That's how I feel about traveling, because prior to having kids, I traveled so much. There's a map right behind me. Traveling was a huge part of my life. So showing my kids and my family Japan is a way that I feel like I'm bringing them into my world. Another thing about the trip to Japan, it's this glimmer of hope that we really needed after a really rough time with the car accident. However, the trip ended up being really rough. Even starting from the flight was delayed 8 hours, I think. And so we were all miserably tired by the time we got there. And then on the very first day of us exploring the area, my daughter at the time was a little over 1 year old. She fell off from the dining area into the nook. It was about a chair's height, like not this tall, but like from where the butt is sitting to the floor, that kind of height. So she fell and then she started vomiting soon after. We were terrified. We thought this could be concussion. We talked to our family doctor online and decided to take her in. And she was diagnosed actually wrongly with a concussion because soon after she started having diarrhea, and we knew right away it was something viral, especially because her brother started throwing up too. So we spent the first week in Japan just staying at the Airbnb, hoping that the kids get better, which my older son did, but my daughter ended up being dehydrated, so she actually was admitted for 5 days of hospital stay. Hospitalization of your kid is hard enough already, not to mention doing it in another country where you don't speak the language, don't know the culture. And when you start tapping into like medical treatments, it's not even a matter of language or culture. It's like a whole different level of awareness that you need to sharpen on the spot. There's a lot of different ways of doing things, and if you know anything about Japan, they're very particular about how they do do things. I've literally had a doctor who respectfully said to me that we are doing it the Japanese way. I don't feel offended or anything. This is just different cultures. Like in America, it's such an individualistic culture. You as the patient or as the guardian of the patient has the right to advocate for your kid's rights. But in Japan, that's a different story. But things like visiting hour ending at 8 p.m., no one, including the parents, can stay with the child from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So every morning of those 5 days of stay, I would just hop on the subway and start commuting with the rest of Tokyo to the hospital that my daughter's staying at. I'll get there at 8, I'll stay with her until she naps, and then I'll go out to get something to eat, and I'll come back and play with her until it's time for her to go to bed. I don't know, there are other kids there who are just there by themselves all day. And there was this one kid who would just cry the whole time, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching. It was so rough. Like every minute that I'm away from her, I feel so guilty. I'm just wondering what is happening to her. Is someone tending to her when she cries? I would try to tell the doctors and nurses that Eden is not really like a lot of other babies who would cry if they have any needs. Sometimes she would just compensate and compensate and compensate and not express what her needs are. There was one morning at 8 a.m. I came in and her feet was a little purple because the wires that they use for monitoring got tangled up, and she wouldn't even cry or fuss about it. So that morning when the nurses came in, I was very firm but polite. Hopefully that came through Google Translate. By the way, Google Translate is the MVP here because it totally did the job of a proper translator as long as your internet is stable. It uses a large language model. You can speak into the app and it will spit out Japanese in audio as well as text. It was a little bit slow communicating, but I think 95% of the time it did its job very, very well. Anyway, I told the nurses, hey, this is what I mean when I said that she needs to be checked on more frequently because she's not like other kids who would actively cry if they needed anything. And since then, they've taken me a lot more seriously. We came back from Japan, needless to say, exhausted physically and mentally. There was a lot of disappointment, there was a lot of grieving. And even when we were processing with our friends from church, really, really good friends who are there to walk with us, we were just so confused. We didn't really know how to vocalize what is actually going on internally. That should have been a big red flag in terms of burnout, but I somehow was not aware. Here's the crazy thing. The way I express it to my husband is that my burnout radar is fried. It's non-existing. I am either fine, or I'm dying, everything is falling apart, there's no hope. Like there is nothing in the middle. Wouldn't it be so nice if I could go from like fine to a little bit stressed? Oh, this is getting a little bit overwhelmed. Oh, that's really overwhelming. Now we need to stop, hit a break. If only I have that spectrum, how nice would that be? Unfortunately, I don't. And of course, I went to ChatGPT and I asked, hey, what is wrong with me? That's a little bit harsh, but genuinely, what is happening? Why is my burnout radar fried? It does give some pretty clarifying points. I think being neurodivergent doesn't help because executive function is such a primary function that helps people detect things like mental stress, sense of time, but even things like reading the room. So if my executive function is compromised, then naturally the ability to detect a burnout or stress is not as functional as it should be. There's also the upbringing part that would affect how I detect stress level. Since I grew up in a very high stress and very chaotic home environment, my brain probably just normalized that and believed that that level of stress and chaos is normal, and therefore as a grown-up, that protection mechanism somehow is backfiring now. Anyway, we are back and we're exhausted. We're processing that with our friends, and a few of them were so kind in proposing that they will help my mom, who was here in the US at the time, take care of the kids so that Chris and I can go on a vacation ourselves. So Chris and I took up on the offer. We went to Wilmington, North Carolina for a long weekend, a 3-day weekend, and we stayed with a couple who are awesome friends, but also amazing mentors, super wise and super loving. They really took us in and took care of us and expect nothing of us. They fed us. And for the first time in years, I was so relaxed. I felt like a kid again. They had a pool in their backyard. So I was just, in there doing all the tricks that I used to do when I was a little kid. When you were a kid, you were just completely shameless. You're just like, oh, let's see what happens when I do this. So I was doing a lot of that, which I haven't done in years. But even more than that, the couple that we stayed with helped me identify that I was in the red. I am totally going through a burnout. It's so crazy that I need someone else to tell me that. And Chris was also shocked. It's time to get Tian out of the red. So we came back, we got a bunch of book recommendations that I am still going through a little bit at a time. Just books about overcoming trauma, overcoming emotional bondage, all amazing topics. And I was just getting into a rhythm when my mom was scheduled to go back to China on a Saturday. Thursday night, my son started having symptoms of a stomach virus. And from a get-go, I can see that, oh, this one is not good. And he's usually the type that would bounce back from any infection within like 24 hours. Like even in Japan, when his sister was hospitalized, he got over everything within 24 hours, was like eating normal and back to running around and, you know, having attitudes within 24 hours. But this time it's like 24 hours in, he is still miserable and he started to have issues keeping down liquids. Long story short, he ended up in the hospital for like a 2-day stay. I think that was the last straw for me. I need to slow down. Something else has got to give. This past few months, I've just been like running, and I was taking YouTube very seriously, so I was uploading every week. And if you have ever tried content creation, you would know how demanding that is itself, especially trying to do that with little kids. I think I need to slow down. I don't know how the future of this YouTube thing is gonna look like, whether I'm gonna upload less frequently or I'm gonna stick with certain formats that are more accommodating to my current season as a mom of 2 littles. I don't know what it looks like yet, but here's what I know for sure. I really just miss being present with my kids. It is so crazy to realize that Zion is almost 4. We're already 4 summers in out of 18 summers that we have together for sure. I still want to be in my kids' life afterwards, and I'm actively working towards that, trying to build a good relationship with them. But you know, when your kids are grown up, it's a privilege to be in their life. It is not to be assumed. The other day I took off the tray from my baby's high chair and I realized that, oh my gosh, I am so close to putting away this high chair. She's not as much of a baby as she was before. I think it puts a fear of God in me that I can't just let these time pass. I miss being present with them. And I'm really embarrassed to admit that the most present I've been with my 2 kids were the times when they were hospitalized, when everything else fades away and nothing else matters but this kid in front of me. And that's a feeling I just don't have a lot. Today when I was on a walk, I told Zion that I really love him. He said he really loves me too. And I slowed down and I looked him in the eyes and I said, Zion, I really love you. And he says, Mommy, I really love you too. And so we kept walking. I thought we're done. He suddenly stopped and said, Hey, Mommy. I say, yes. He said, when I'm a big man, I still want to live with you. I don't want to leave your house. And I thought that's the sweetest thing he's ever said to me. These are the days. These are the days I'm gonna want back. And nothing in this world should take away my ability to be present. And if I'm really honest, I feel like a hypocrite making videos about how to be present with your kids. But because of making those videos, I am less present with my kids. Sorry. I have dry eyes, so once I start crying, it stings. As a creator, I often have this imposter syndrome, not just because I don't know if my content is good enough, but also because I feel like I'm constantly living a double life. Because no matter how open you are online, it's impossible to fully express who you are. It's not the same as someone living in your house and seeing every aspect of how you behave, how you talk, what you're going through. I mean, every media is limited in its ability to carry messages. And quite honestly, I'm not trying to hide this from you, but I just didn't realize how much had been stacked on top of each other. So I think the priority of these next few months is just getting out of the red, healing from the burnout itself, and learning to be present with my kids again. And at the same time, until God tells me stop YouTube, I'm gonna keep trying to make content, but there's going to be a shift. If you are going through some kind of burnout or a level of stress that is really hard to bear, just know that you're not alone and we're in this together, okay? If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe so I can see you in the next video. Bye.